Well, hello and welcome to our dual podcast today. I'm Cherie Louise Turner. I'm the host and producer of Women's Running Stories, and I'm here with my friends and co-producers of our panels that we've done at the Boston Marathon Expo for several years in a row now. And we're doing this dual episode because we've never done this before. So first, I will more completely introduce myself. I am Cherie Louise Turner. I'm the host and producer of Women's Running Stories, where exceptional women runners share inspirational stories about their running experiences. I am also a runner myself. I'm a competitive masters runner, and I run shorter distances, the 5K, the mile, and the 800 on the track and the road. And one other thing I'll say too about when I say exceptional women runners, I don't just mean people who run fast. I think a lot of people think I say exceptional and it means people who are running and racing fast. And I have a much broader definition of what I think exceptional is. So if you want to learn more about that, you can tune into the podcast. But I'll pass it over to you two. Julie, you wanna jump in here?
Sure. I'm Julie Sapper. I'm the co-host of the Run Farther and Faster podcast and also the co-founder of the coaching company Run Farther and Faster. And Cherie, thanks so much for having us today. This is going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, and I'm Lisa Levin. I'm the other half of Run Farther and Faster coaching and podcast. And you said this is the first time we've ever done this, but we have 5 years now done this live and in person in Boston. And it is really such a highlight of our Boston experience to be able to do this with you. And I think that the three of us just really work well together, and we have met some exceptional women on our panels over the years. Every year we wonder if we're going to be able to top it, and I don't think we could pick a favorite year. We've met so many exceptional women, and it's been such a delight to do it with you.
Likewise. And I marvel at the fact that, I'm here in Cambridge, Massachusetts, right next to Boston. The two of you are down in the DC area. So we really don't spend much time in person together, but we have formed this collaborative effort, and it's just been so much fun. And now it is something I really look forward to every year. As soon as we do one, I'm like, okay, let's start planning the next one.
It's super fun. I love the time we spend planning it because we just love talking with you. I mean, you're our dear friend, and also getting together before the event and working together in the lobby of the hotel that we meet at every year. And that's always an adventure. Like this year, as we're sitting in the lobby, in walks Bobby Gibb. And we end up having this crazy conversation with Bobby about the state of the world and her sculpture, which was just revealed at the start line. And these are sort of experiences that I think are magnified when we share them with you, Cherie, because you're such a fan of the sport, particularly with respect to women, of course, as are we. So there aren't that many people that we can get together with and fangirl over people that, the rest of the world doesn't really know that well. And meanwhile, we're like, oh my God, look who it is. So it's really great.
Yeah. And it was also fun that Bobby was there with her son. And we just had a nice conversation with the two of them. And we could all proudly say that we've both had Bobby on our podcasts in the past. So, because he did ask, oh, have you had my mom on? And we're just like, oh, yes, of course we have.
Like as soon as we could, because she's amazing.
What I love this year was sitting in the lobby as we were prepping Friday night for our Saturday Expo panel. We had not yet met our guests. We did not meet them yet this year. And lo and behold, right behind us, Marion Gucci Cooper was standing, and we kind of thought, I think that's her. And we had an opportunity to meet her and talk to her before the panel, which was really helpful because I think our guests were just as much, didn't know what to expect as much as we didn't really know what to expect because we hadn't connected beforehand directly. And it was such a fun. So another lobby run-in that just the hallmark of our prep sessions.
Yeah. What a delight. Well, I think we have some questions that we wanted to ask each other, because the one thing we haven't done is in a recording session, asked each other questions, gotten to interview each other. So who wants to kick that off? Lisa, do you want to kick it off?
Yeah, I know, we, like you said, we talk a lot about women in the sport and we talk about our panel and we talk about our own running, but we haven't really talked about our podcast and why we started the podcast, what we've learned from the podcast. So let's kick it off with that. Let's ask Sheree, when did you start your podcast and why did you start it?
Yeah, so I started the planning for my podcast in, I'd say probably, mid 2019. And I fatefully came out in March of 2020 is when I launched.
And Sheree, why did you decide to start a podcast? And back then, because that's around the time we started ours, podcasts weren't as common as now, as they are now, weren't as numerous as they are. So what made you decide to start a podcast specifically with a focus on exceptional women in running?
Yeah. So what got me started is I loved radio and I really loved this podcasting thing. I had been listening to podcasts for a while and I had this fantasy of maybe starting my own someday, but I had no idea what I wanted to dedicate my time to. And I was also, because of my husband's job, moving to the Boston area. And I'll be quite frank about it. I did not want to move here. So I needed to make some part of this move about me. And so I decided, well, I'm going to get on this podcast adventure. And I actually found a podcasting class when I first moved here. And then I discovered that there was a very, very rich audio storytelling and podcasting community here. And I dove headfirst into it. And I learned a lot about podcasting. I give that whole part of my life, like all the credit for being learning how to produce and storytell and record and do everything that I know how to do. I learned during that time. And I spent a lot of time in workshops and meeting other podcasters. And when it came to deciding what I wanted to focus on, it was kind of that old adage of like, well, what do you write about? You write about what you know. Well, what do you podcast about? You podcast about what you know. So I knew about running because that was what I was spending a lot of time doing. And at first, my podcast was going to be only about the Comrades Marathon, which is a 56-mile road marathon in South Africa. It's the oldest and largest ultra marathon in the world. And I became very fascinated with it. I did not want to run it, but my husband did. And so I thought, well, you can run it and I'll tell stories about it. And it was going to be about anybody. And then I learned about the 4%. And the 4% is that at the time, the statistic was only 4% of mainstream sports media focuses on women athletes. And I just thought, oh, yikes. I'd always known that women did not get the coverage they deserved, but I did not know it was that bad. So as soon as I learned that, I was like, well, that's it then. I'm only talking about women because we're so far behind in covering what women do in the sport. And that has also blossomed into recognizing that women of color are even further underrepresented. And so making an effort to talk about lots of different stories from lots of different perspectives. And it had a real international feel at first, especially because it was focused on the Comrades Marathon. And my first over a dozen episodes only focused on Comrades. And then I was like, oh, okay, I need to expand and talk about something other than this one event. And so then it has, sort of grown out of that to include any women who have a running story, which is kind of everybody.
Do you remember who your first guest was?
I do. It was Devin Yanko. And she is a very well-known ultra runner. And she had run the Comrades Marathon and done very, very well. She was in the elite field, but she's also one of the top ultra runners. And then my second person who I've actually just had on again recently is one of India's best ultra runners who also ran the Comrades Marathon and ran an incredible time. And her story was unbelievable too. And that was actually my first venture into searching out somebody and contacting a total stranger. Like I didn't know Devin, but I'd known about her. So, and she was here in the States and it was easy to find her and all those things. But when I went after Anjali Sarogi, it was a whole different situation. And so I learned how to contact people who I absolutely did not know and who certainly knew nothing about me. And that was super fun. And then just like, am not shy about asking anyone to be on my show.
And when you asked her, was that challenging, or did she respond right away and agree to come on your show?
Both of them responded pretty right away and were eager to come on. And I give a lot of credit to Devin too, because she had no idea who I was. I had nothing to show her because I hadn't done anything. And she said yes immediately. And I've always been a big fan of hers. She's a great writer and she's an exceptional runner. And she's been through a lot. She has some autoimmune issues that she deals with and is very public about. And she has, and many other challenges that she's been very, very open about. And so, yeah, I'm always super thankful to her for taking a chance on me.
Now, interestingly, you talked about that you started your podcast to cover comrades. Did you think at the time that you one day would run it? Was that in your... So how did you go from I'm not going to run this, my husband is, to I'm going to run this? Was it your podcast?
Yes. Yeah, 100%. That I just could not keep telling stories about this event and how amazing and life-changing it was. And just really realizing that I could not fairly cover something that I wasn't willing to do myself. And I've run it twice. And I don't think I'll be back to run it again.
It's on my bucket list. Did you do the up years or down years or one of each?
I did. Well, so with Comrades, they have this back-to-back medal. And the back-to-back medal is intended for you to run one up and one down. And then you can call yourself a Comrades runner. Well, when I did my back-to-back, because I did, it was 2 down years.
Because they did it down for, right? Didn't they do it down for an anniversary year, I think? It might have been
did,
or something. They did it for a special. I remember they did it special. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And it had to do with,
there's still plenty of up in the down years I've seen.
Oh yeah. And the down is real. Like a lot, I've talked to so many people who say they think the down is harder than the up. And I will attest to the fact that it is brutal on your thigh or on your whole body. It's just brutal. But I did not want to run the up run. So it worked out very nicely.
Did you get the medal?
Me.
Did you get the back-to-back medal still?
Oh yeah.
Oh, good.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. So, yeah.
That's what's so funny about our sport is that there are very few people that say what you just said, which is, I felt like I couldn't report on this without doing it myself. Like, how many people tell stories and report on sports that they've actually never participated in all the time? Yeah. So I find it funny that you felt that way, because it is true in running that you only have street cred if you actually run, if you're going to be a running podcaster.
Yeah. And I mean, I suppose people could do a great job if they didn't participate, but I definitely draw on my own experiences all the time. So I'm going to turn the tables here and ask you two, what got the two of you going and having your podcast and doing it together? I'm really curious about that aspect of it, because I obviously do mine all by myself. And there are some great things about that, but there are some things that I imagine you two have that are really nice to have. Not the least of which is a friendship to work off of. But yeah, so tell me about
I'm going to jump in here. I got to tell you from my perspective how it started. So first of all, we do it together because it came from our coaching. And we realized we had a lot of cumulative experience with the Boston Marathon. And I still remember Julie at one point said, hey, we should do a podcast. And this was when podcasts were not, so I was not into it was kind of the opposite of you dove head first and learned all about podcasting. We knew nothing. And I remember saying to her, who is going to listen other than our parents? Like, who's going to listen? And she said, just trust me, let's do this. And I was just looking back. Our first episode was just us talking about training to run your best Boston Marathon. And our first few guests were friends, local friends that had run Boston a lot. So we did not, we started very grassroots. Our sound was terrible. We knew not opposite of you. We knew nothing. But I remember saying to Julie, like thinking in my head that Julie was crazy and this was going to just flop and we're going to be wasting our time just talking on this recording that nobody was going to listen to. And what it's turned into and what it's brought us all these years later, it's really special to me because I started out. So I'll let Julie add it in, but why she kind of thought of it, but really it was her idea. And I just thought it was kind of this crazy idea that nobody would listen to. Our first sign that people actually listened to us was when the intent for that first few episodes was really just to do a limited number from January until April, helping people prep for Boston. It was specifically, we had a podiatrist on, we had a physical therapist on, we had a dietitian on, and it was really just, here are the pieces to preparing for the Boston Marathon. And we were going to end in April. And we went to Boston and we made an announcement on the podcast. We said, if anybody wants to meet us, come meet us. I think it was the lobby of the Mandarin Oriental Hotel, which we crashed because we had a friend that was staying. We weren't even staying there. And we said, if anybody wants to come see us, come to the lobby of the Mandarin Oriental Hotel. And we thought there would be like 3 of our runners there and we'd hang out, and that was it. And we had, I would say, 20 to 40 people that came from all over the world. I remember there was a guy from, I think, South Africa, but there were people from all over the world.
New Zealand.
They came and said, you got me through and it was beginners and also experienced runners. It said, you got me through this training and I listened to every single one of yours. And then it dawned on me like, oh, people actually listen. So I'm going to turn it over to Julie to tell from her perspective. But that's what I always think about, is how I was rolling my eyes at the beginning. Like, Julie, nobody's going to listen to this. I don't know what crazy idea you have that we're going to podcast and people will actually listen. So
I think it's funny because I do feel like I've dragged you into certain things, Lisa, where you're like, come on, Julie. So I don't blame you for rolling your eyes. Like one time we ended up, this is non-related, but just for you to better understand why Lisa rolled her eyes. Like we went to this like radio station holiday party one year that it
was the Housewives. Wasn't it the Real Housewives party?
No, that was different. That's when we were on the Real Housewives and they invited us.
The ugly sweater party. The ugly sweater party. Yes, yes.
The Real Housewives thing, that was great because we actually got, that was cool. But this was like, I thought it was a professional opportunity. It so wasn't. And I understand why Lisa would have rolled her eyes because I've had some kooky ideas that she's.
It wasn't you. It wasn't you. It was just I didn't understand podcasting. I thought like we're just going to record on something and then it's going to go out there. Like I didn't quite understand what podcasting was. So,
but I understand why you rolled your eyes. I really, really do. And so how it sort of occurred to me was. I wasn't listening to a lot of podcasts it was 2019, but I did listen to an episode of Lindsay Hine, and I wasn't familiar with her podcast at the time because she had as a guest someone I went to high school with, Bob Kennedy. And Bob is an Olympian and was a top athlete also at Indiana University where I attended, and he went to my high school and was a couple years older. And I grew up idolizing him. And at the time I wasn't a runner, but he was the Olympian that went to my high school. So of course, when he was on her podcast, I listened to the episode. And no shade to Lindsay at all. She did a great job, but I thought we could do this. And there are questions that she hasn't asked that I would have asked. I would like to ask people questions. I think we should do this. And then I started thinking about, well, what do we know a lot about? And I was like, you know what? We know a lot about Boston and people ask us a lot about Boston. We should do a Boston Marathon podcast and try this out. And that's how it happened. And we were shy at first and we only asked our friends. Like we had Ken Trombatori, Dan DeFonso. And then we got brave and we asked Catherine Switzer to come on our podcast. And
we just seemed like you. We had to find her, like we had to go find a website or we had to hunt down some and we just shot it off in the dark. And within a couple of minutes, she had written back and said, sure. And that's our lesson of like how people were willing to, you just have to ask. But yes, I remember that.
But at the time, luckily, she didn't ask, how many downloads do you have? Because we would have been like 20. So that's how we started, and it's become something. I think like anything, and Cherie, I'm sure you can attest to this more. When you do something consistently, even if it's not perfect, it's better than waiting until it's perfect. So we knew it wasn't perfect. It's still not even close to perfect. We know that, but we're consistent. And that's kind of how we do it. We don't spend a lot of time making sure it sounds clean. It's not because we don't care. It's just we just don't have time. So sometimes we roll out episodes where the sound quality is subpar. We realize that it's not because we're sloppy. It's because we'd rather get the information out there than hold on to it and wait until we have time to fix it, which would take us a month because of our time limitations. So that's it. Yeah.
And you've both provide really great information. So I think people are willing to, well, I was going to say people are willing to listen to audio that is not 100% awesome, quality wise, in order to get good content. I think we've learned that over time because there's so many of us out there that are making podcasts out of our homes and closets and not in a sound studio. So
yeah, exactly. Where do you see yourself, Sheree? Like, you do have a very professional podcast, and we know that you're now producing other podcasts. Do you see yourself forming a network? What's kind of your next step or goal, if you have one?
You know, right off the top of my head, I'm going to say I don't have a set goal. I'm actually really happy with where I'm at right now. And I'm always trying to think of new ideas for women's running stories, like just continue to shape it in ways that feel good or interesting to me and that might be interesting to other people. I tend to be very thinky about running and life in general. So I don't know. I'm always trying. I'm always kind of conceiving ideas, but I don't have anything set right now. Is sort of the short answer to it. Yeah, yeah. So I am actually. So one thing I will say that's been on my mind more and more is really talking to more masters women about performance and what performance actually means, because obviously when we get older, we're not getting necessarily faster. Although for those of us like myself who did not come up in track and field, and I did not set down fast times as a young person, I am setting all of my times kind of now, especially because I did not start racing on the track until I was 50. So I am still hitting PRs.
That's awesome.
And it's like faster as a master. Well, also because I was not faster as a 27-year-old, I mean, so I can honestly say that, but anybody who came up in track and field is not going to have that same experience. But I say in total honesty that I'm a better athlete than I've ever been. And I will just chime in to say that, like, I was a professional cyclist when I was in my early 20s. I was on a domestic pro team. We raced in Canada and the US, and I did that for a couple of years, and then I was not doing it anymore, but I was very, very serious about that. But I beat the heck out of my body, and I did not treat myself well, mentally, emotionally, physically. It was pretty brutal, and it's taken me a long time to get to the point where I actually truly through and through take care of myself. And so I think there's so much opportunity as we get older and wiser. And this is something I do want to talk to the two of you about, because we're all kind of menopausal women, we're all over 50. But I just think that wisdom we can really carry with us, and we can still learn as athletes, regardless of what the paces and times are. And I like being competitive for that reason. I get something out of treating my body well and seeing what it can do. And it feels very liberating to me in a lot of ways. So anyway, so that's something I'm curious to talk to other women about more. But aside from that, I don't have any other grand plans. Of course, I've thought about networks. I've thought about other iterations or evolutions, and we'll see what happens. But I'm very happy with where I'm at and where the podcast is at. And I also have a Substack that I started, I think it's over a year ago now. I can't believe it's been that long. But when I got into podcasting, I came out of magazines, and I was a writer and an editor for many, 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 many years. And I'd written about all sorts of things. I had started out writing about women in sports, but it had evolved into I worked for regional lifestyle magazines. I wrote about art, like fine arts, for a long, long time. And then I came back to women in sports with Women's Running Stories with the podcast, because I was a little bit burnt out on writing. But now I've sort of started finding my love of writing again. So I'm really enjoying writing about running a lot more. So yeah,
I was just going to ask if you'd write a book eventually. You could write a book.
I probably
all of the interviews that you've done. How do you find new women to interview now? Like, what's your process? Do you kind of keep an eye out for news or, mentions, or, how do you find the women that you interview? Because you're right, they're not all the top performers that you might see in the headlines, but you find some really exceptional women who have these stories. How do you find them? And how do you keep finding them?
It's a combo. Sometimes they find me, and I would say most people who are willing to approach me that say, hey, I have this story about X, Y, and Z. It's like, oh yeah, that does sound interesting. Let's do it. A lot of times, sometimes I search around and, I just start doing research and poking around and seeing if I can find people, who's been written about, who's been on other shows and had interesting stories to tell that I would love to dig into in a different way. And some people I just meet in person. Like, I met a number of people at the over Boston Marathon weekend who, I have now a list of several other people just coming out of that just by having conversations. And it's like, ooh, this person definitely has a story I'd like to tell. So it's organic, I would say. I don't have an agenda, let's put it that way, other than to keep the stories really varied. I recently had a woman on who's an ultra runner, and she's a filmmaker, and that just comes off the top of my head. Many women who have written books, because that is a good way for me to know all about their story. And one person in particular who I'm just going to mention right now, because we're all friends with her and we've all interviewed her, is Elisa Harvey.
Yeah.
Because her book, I think, is amazing.
It's amazing.
I'm just I'm literally halfway through right now, and I'm so excited to keep reading it. So anyway, so lots of different ways. And I'm going to shoot that question right back to the two of you. Both questions actually is, what do you see on the horizons for your podcast, and how do you find your guests?
We don't have a plan for our podcast other than to just stay consistent. I think it would be disingenuous to say that we have specific goals. I think our goal is to be consistent, just like running. Sometimes you don't have a specific goal. You just want to make sure you're healthy and you keep going. And that's what our podcast is about, is finding interesting guests, platforming those interesting guests, but also sharing information and covering topics that are important to us or to our runners, and from our lens as coaches, and based on patterns that we see, we often end up talking about things that maybe are written about already or maybe aren't, but they're based on our ecosystem and what we see, and we want to make sure people have the information. So that's and then in terms of finding guests, often, like you, will read something and reach out to each other and say, he or she would be a great guest. We get a lot of ideas reading other folks' newsletters and Substacks, especially Allison Wade, when she features a master's woman who has an interesting story. We will definitely contact that woman. One year we did a series where we looked up all of the masters women who were in the pro field at the Boston Marathon, and we tried to interview all of them. One year we interviewed a bunch of race directors. So sometimes we'll come up with a theme and cover it as a series over several weeks.
Yeah, it often comes from, because we are really, I think, coaches first, podcasters second. It comes from sort of our coaching background. And when we say, it would be really helpful for us to learn about, nutrition for the Boston Marathon. Like, how do you time your nutrition? It would be helpful for us to learn about injury prevention. It would be helpful for us to learn about super shoes and how they're affecting the health of runners. And so we will then go say, let's see, can we find a podiatrist that is experienced with runners that has maybe seen some trends with the advent of super shoes, and they can talk about that, or a dietitian who can talk to whatever kind of topics. Often it comes from when we have runners that we have questions about, that our runners bring up and that we have questions about. And so it's really us seeking that information, because if we're looking for that information, other people are too. And I will say, I think our most listened to, and Julie knows the stats a little better than I do, but our most listened to episodes often are Boston Marathon specific. People who are looking for our Boston Marathon recaps, our Boston Marathon race prep, our Boston Marathon talk with Dave McGilvery, our Boston Marathon talk with Lauren Proshan from the BAA. Like those are very much downloaded because people are hungry for that information on, if they're getting ready for Boston, they're searching for that and they're finding that. So that's, that's still part of what we do. But after that first year or that first season, when we kind of targeted the Boston Marathon and thought that's where we're going to end, people said, no, keep going. I'm enjoying listening to your, and I still thought you guys are crazy. How do you enjoy listening to us? But they said, keep going. And then we expanded to more general topics. And like Julie said, if we find somebody who looks like they're an interesting or inspiring Masters women runner that we just want to learn more about. So it really does. I think most of our ideas and the way we find people is through our coaching. Kind of comes from that. Yeah.
So who is your favorite guest so far that you've ever had?
I will tell you a favorite guest. And this just, and it's interesting because we had all talked about some of these questions beforehand. And this was one that I was like, I'm just not answering this.
It's like a favorite child. It's like asking to pick your favorite child. It's hard. I get it. I was thinking about it too.
Favorite.
Yeah, a favorite. Or memorable, something that sticks out in your mind.
Right. And so this was a very, very memorable guest, was a woman named Blanche Moyla. She's very famous in South Africa. She was the first Black South African to be on the national team. And this is during apartheid, right? She was a very successful
runner. I loved that episode. I remember
during apartheid.
That was a great episode.
Yeah. And it gives me goosebumps, because I was so nervous to interview her. And it had taken quite a bit of effort, I'll just say, to find her, to connect with her, and to get the interview set up. And so here she is. She's this she's this very famous runner in South Africa. Everybody knows Blanche Moyla. And here I am. I'm this white middle-aged woman from America, and I'm going to go interview her, right? And so I was very conscientious of so many differences between us, and so deeply thankful that she said yes to me, because she said yes to me during the Comrades Marathon, and kind of over that time period, over the weekend that Comrades was taking place. I was not running, but she was. So here she had to, she was getting ready to run this very long race. And we agreed to meet at the expo, which I just said yes to whatever was going to work for her. I'm like, it's going to be the expo. It's going to be loud. It's going to be whatever it's going to be. I'm going to make this work. And so anyways, I was going with lots of nerves, lots of gratitude, and just really wanting it to work out well. And I had also never in my life interviewed somebody with my recording equipment live. Now I practiced at home, but of course, like when you're in the moment, it just, it's just a whole different ball of wax. So we meet. She was amazing. We walk through the expo, which of course she's stopping about every 30 seconds to say hi to somebody, or someone's coming up to her because everybody recognizes her. She also wears a turban on her head, so she's super recognizable in many ways. So we find a place to sit, and we're on our own, but we're still in the middle of chaos. Like there's just stuff going on around me. There's announcements, blah, 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 blah. So we sit down. I'm super nervous. We get started. I realized about 5 minutes in that I had not pressed record. And so I very calmly just press record. And as she's answering a question and I'm trying to keep my head in the game, I'm trying to think of what she's already said that I want to ask her to say again without telling her that I totally screwed up and did not record the first however many minutes of our conversation. Because I didn't want to look like the amateur that I was. So, anyway, I should have honestly, in retrospect, I should have just told her what happened and re-asked my questions. But I just did not do that. Anyway, so for all of these many reasons, it was very memorable. But it was also very memorable because she has such an incredible story. And the fact that she was willing to share it with me, who is just such a total stranger to her, to her country, to her history, to everything, and that she was willing to give me that time and answer my questions and then also just her story is so amazing. I don't know. She's definitely one of my all-time favorites. And I was also just so thankful to actually, I just feel so honored to have gotten to talk to her, because she is an unbelievable woman. And I'll tell you, I asked her one question that I learned very, very quickly, just how I guess sort of ignorant I am about what she went through and what her family went through and what her entire community went through for so long, going through apartheid as a Black person in South Africa. I mean, it's just so devastating. But I asked her if her brothers and sisters, she said that she had siblings who were also talented runners. And I said, oh, did they ever race? And the look she gave me was sort of like, because she was the youngest, and she had mentioned that she was the youngest, and she was just like, they were not allowed, and it was just one of those think it through and know your history, and just it snapped me back to a reality that I was not being
that's really powerful.
So I just have been super thankful. And I've had other moments with people too who come from very different backgrounds from me, and I have been willing to share very challenging experiences. But that one is an experience that I don't know. I just don't think I have any. I don't even think my imagination can be, I don't know, creative enough to understand what that would be like. So
it was a great episode. I never would have known that there was a snafu. You really, that was, I remember it very distinctly. It was a really powerful conversation.
Thank you.
So we can put in the show notes that episode number, because I think everyone should listen. It's a great.
I think, Cherie, that also speaks to what I know. I personally have, when people ask me about the podcast now, and why we do it and what we like about it, it's those connections that we've made with people over the years. We've gotten off many podcasts where we've been like, wow, that was, and we stay in touch with the people, or just whatever it was, they shared some knowledge with us, some experience with us that left a mark on us. And that's been the most rewarding part of doing this, is those connections that people we would have never met otherwise if we weren't doing our podcast, which I think is really, that's really the takeaway for me.
Lisa, what about you? What for you is
please,
a memorable guest? Doesn't have to be your favorite, because we don't play favorites.
We definitely don't have favorites. There's so many. And how many episodes have we done now, Julie? Like
280.
280. So I probably would have to go back and look. But my favorite every year is when we have Dave McGillivray on the show. I just, every time he talks and he's telling us about why he runs and what he loves about running, I'm like, yes. And I just, because Boston is so special to us, knowing how integral he is to Boston. And he's always so willing. We send him an email and within a minute he answers and says, sure, I'll come on. He's always so generous with his time. So he's just, somebody who I always enjoy having, and we've had him on many times. So that's probably, what I think of when I think of, a memorable, or somebody who's, made an impact. But I like I said, there have been so many. What about you, Julie?
Oh, for sure. My most memorable guest was when we interviewed Markel the Gazelle Taylor from the documentary 26.2 to Life, tracking him down and finding him and getting him to come on the show, and then getting him comfortable enough to share his story. It was really moving. And I think for me, it was memorable too, because it kind of combined my professional outside of running life with running, and having the opportunity to talk to someone who used his time in prison to do what he could to better his life, and then come out with a love of running, and then run the Boston Marathon. And it was just a very powerful, sometimes awkward conversation, and it was a little bit challenging, and I'm glad we did it. So that was one that was very memorable for me for many reasons.
Yeah, sometimes those conversations that do feel awkward or uncomfortable, you learn a lot.
Yeah.
I know we've all enjoyed having Marilyn Bevins on our show. Love Marilyn. She's somebody.
Love her.
She really she's great. So I know we've interviewed her live and had her on the podcast from our live recordings, but she's great. And she keeps going back to Boston every year too.
And I think we will probably be involved with her at next year's Boston because we've talked about this previously over the weekend, but I was chatting with Tony Reed, who does a lot of work with Marilyn Bevans, and he has made a short documentary about the fact that Marilyn is the first marathoner, period, first marathoner, period, to place in the, I want to, it was either top 5 or top 3, I'm forgetting right now, of the 3 major marathons in the US, Chicago, New York, and Boston, first marathoner ever to do that. And it will be her 50th anniversary of doing that this next year. And so there'll be some celebrating around that. And I know that we've talked about getting involved with him to celebrate her
it'll be full circle for us as our Boston pod, because she was on our first Boston panel, right? It was right after.
And the second.
Yes, exactly. Right, exactly. She was on the first and then came back for the second.
I'm here for it. I love that woman.
Yeah.
I know. She tells it like it is. And I
love her.
She's great. So she's another fun one. But
yeah,
really every time we do an interview and every time we have somebody on, even if it's not somebody we thought would make a huge impact, just somebody who's coming on for informational purposes, we always get off and say, wow, that was really nice to meet them. And again, we oftentimes stay in touch with them. And that's really, it's really broadened our experience as coaches, as humans, to have this podcast. And so now, again, when I look back at when we started and I thought, this is so silly, like what's going to ever happen with this podcast? Where is it ever going to go? And to see really where it has gone and what it's brought to us, it's pretty remarkable.
And I am going to just chime in to say that in the show notes, we will put a link to the trailer for the Marilyn Bevans short documentary that Tony Reed made. So that is available now. So people can get excited about celebrating Marilyn next year again for being the awesome runner that she is. It's a great trailer.
Tony was on our podcast too.
Oh yeah, because you have men on your show.
Yeah, we do have men on our show. So do you have any funny stories, Cherie, that you can share? Like any?
Oh, funny stories. Oh God, I hate to say that. There's just nothing funny about what I do.
Or like adventures.
I don't know.
Do we have any, Julie? I can't really.
We have so many.
I'm gonna think on that while you answer. So, Julie, clearly you have.
We just have a lot of funny moments through the years. We have a lot of bloopers, of course, and we've had guests over the years where we're both not sure how to handle. I don't want to get into specifics because I don't want to embarrass anyone, but let's just say like we've been in situations with each other where we're like, oh, what do we do? Like, how do we handle this little nugget? How do we handle this? We've had some guests go off the rails on certain things and we're like, oh God, what do we do? How do we reel them back in? We've had some really uncomfortably funny moments. And then, of course, we've had debacles over the years, like where, we devoted a whole episode to this, but just we mistakenly believed an email inviting us onto a podcast as podcasters was true. And really, it was a fishing expedition to break into our Facebook page, which was successful. And that was a nightmare. Right. But we just didn't know. And we continue to get, I don't know about you, Cherie, we get the weirdest inquiries where people are like, we'd like to have this. And it's generally like some kind of dietary supplement founder.
Or not related to running. We've had I should go back and look. Sometimes we're like, why are they writing us? But it's like the most bizarre. So do you get pitches from people that you just kind of ignore because they're just,
well, so many men.
Oh.
Yeah,
like women's running stories.
Just look at the title of the show.
Yeah, like us, Run Farther and Faster. And we get all kinds of things like, we'd love to have, it's always some PR person saying, your guest can talk about boating. And we're like, but we're not
or
boating.
The stock market or investing. And we're like, did you read the name of our podcast? Clearly not. It must be AI sending out these.
We're running.
Yes.
So those, that's not related, but I just think this little world we're in, sometimes we end up in really funny situations. But I think also what's funny is we get a lot of funny, for lack of a better word, fan mail. Like some of the mail we get is hysterical. I love it so much. I love it when people write in and share thoughts, stories, something that feedback. I love it. I love hearing from people because you just never know how an episode's going to hit someone or affect someone. And I love it when people write in and share what impacted them, because then number one, you feel like it was worth it. And number two, you recognize that how you perceive something when you hear information may be different than someone else, because everyone's coming to it from a different framework. So how someone's story impacts me may be very different than a listener who has a different perspective. And I so appreciate when listeners write in, and sometimes listeners are not happy with us. And when they write in, I appreciate that. I want to know, how did we mess up and how can we make it better? It's not often, but it happens. And it affects us. Like we really, we take that information to heart and we want to correct it. So yeah, I'm sure you get a lot of feedback, Cherie. I'm sure people reach out to you all the time because you cover a lot of heavy things. Like you cover some really important topics.
I would think that I would get more pushback than I do. I'll be honest, especially some of the things I've written.
That's great because you really, I mean, you stay your, okay. I will say this. A lot of the pushback that we've gotten over the years it happens to be a lot of the time from men. So
see, and I don't that's just not my audience.
Yeah. Yes, exactly.
I just don't think a lot of men listen to me or take me seriously.
And you're telling stories. So if anybody's going to reach out, it would probably be to say like, I enjoyed that story. It was not going to be some.
But her Substack, she says her strong opinions, though.
Yes, that is
and
true.
I've written stories for a couple of other entities that have been very critical about and just like I really don't think there's anything wrong with being critical. And I think there's a lot of people who are very defensive about stuff. And I've been defensive too. Like I get it, but also take a deep breath, because if you're feeling defensive about something, it probably means that somebody's striking a chord that you don't like. That might be true. And I notice that in my own self, and I take note of it. And I think that other people ought to do the same.
Yeah, I think as we grow, and we're always evolving as people, it's one of the best skills that we can give ourselves is to accept constructive feedback. Not mean emails, but constructive feedback. Like that's so important. And, I really appreciate it. We've had I don't think we've had any hate mail, but we've had some strong opinions about certain things, but it's not frequent. But when it happens, we take it to heart and we respond immediately, and we look at each other and say, how can we do better?
Yeah. And one thing I will say about being critical of things is that I think there's a real tendency, and I'll just say in the running world because it's what I know the best, but there's this real tendency to just want to cheerlead everything and just celebrate everything. And it's like, well, not everything is worth celebrating. And it is okay to be critical, and we don't need to just point to the places where there's success, and that it's really important to give a critical eye to things because it's not all great for everybody. So
it's not. And I think one thing that's really important to talk about, and it's really hard to talk about it, but I think it needs to be said, is the proliferation of GLP-1s has now reached the running world. And so size suddenly is back in – size is now a conversation again. We finally got out of that. And now, again, it's a thing. Yeah. And I am nervous and curious to see how that's going to impact runners. It's not obviously going to affect the pro field because professional runners are not on peptides, but generally that kind of peptide. But it could easily affect the semi-pro field or people who want to get to that level. And it's just something that we have been talking about on our show and with each other. We're worried. And because we're talking about women's running, this is, I think, going to really impact women's running. It may not be at the top level, but definitely the greater population. We have yet to know exactly how, but we're worried.
Yeah, and I will say that a topic I don't dive into or court or highlight very often, if at all, is women talking about weight loss journeys, because that is just not something I don't know. I just think that that's a personal decision, and I don't want to hold that up as something that people necessarily ought to be aiming for. I think that if people gain or lose weight, that's their life and their journey and their body. And I do not want to promote that storyline of that we should be looking to lose weight as I think running is running. And
it should be separate. Like it should be body neutral. Like
and I'm just not going to highlight that as like some sort of a goal that people ought to have.
No.
So
no, and it's hard. And I've been very right now.
Yeah, and I haven't come up against this particular concern. I hadn't even considered this, quite honestly.
We see it from a coaching perspective, and this is kind of how we come to, and when we have runners who are asking us these questions. And that is a good segue, though, to talking, kind of going from our podcast to running and running trends. It's like, what are the changes that we've seen, particularly in women's running, and in addition to the proliferation of podcasts, which I think really, when we all started, there were not that many running podcasts. Now there are many. But what are some of the other changes that we've kind of seen in running that you guys think are making an impact?
Shoes. I mean,
and everybody's running marathons.
Yes.
That and
they're filling up for that. There, it's interesting. There was a Carmel marathon was canceled a couple weekends ago for weather, and we worked with some runners who were looking for alternatives, and pretty much all of the alternatives were full. And I don't recall another year where some of these smaller local races that you would think would not be full, they were all full. So you're absolutely right that, and I heard that I thought I just read that the Philly Marathon already filled.
It did.
Registration. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's really, you're right. Everyone's running marathons.
Well, and it's interesting because as somebody who did run marathons and ultras, and then at 50 or there somewhere around 50, 51, 52, I very purposefully just started focusing on shorter distances. It's interesting when I say that I don't run marathons, especially like over marathon weekend. And I just want to emphasize to people like how much fun it is to run other distances.
So much
and how they
fun.
can be very fulfilling. And
that's so important. That's so important because we have so many runners who come to us who feel like that's what they have to do. Their goal has to be a marathon, because if it's anything less, it's not a worthy goal. And we have to convince runners that no, you can have a season or more where you focus on other goals, and they can be just as rewarding as a marathon. But I think there's that,
or more rewarding in some ways. I cherish the experiences I had as in my marathon days, but I'm having so much fun doing other things. And also, like, half marathon is a very long way to run. A 10K is a long way to run. It's just like any distance, depending on where you're coming from, is a long way to go. And also trying to become a more skilled, more efficient runner is a whole journey that you can take whatever distance you're running. And it just on and on. Like, there's so many other things to do in running. And not to, poo-poo marathons, but they really don't have to be the do-all and end-all for people.
They're overrated. They are a little bit overrated.
Well, they are getting So
I think a lot of it is social, though. I think for so many folks, it's community. And if you're not training for a marathon with your friends, you're losing an opportunity to be with the friends that – so – for example, if every summer you train for marathons over the summer with this specific group, if you decide not to do the marathon, you won't be with your friends. And that's huge for people. And, folks are more isolated than ever. So I understand that. It's important to have human connection. And it's too bad that there isn't the same sort of perceived camaraderie surrounding training for shorter things. Like, what if there were groups that were just as robust that were training for shorter things that you could kind of toggle back and forth? And I'm sure there is that. And I'm sure New York Roadrunners and our running club, Montgomery Roadrunners, has that. But just in general, I think a lot of the impetus for people to choose the marathon life is because it is community, it's social, and it's not about the distance, it's about the people.
Yes.
So if everybody together said, you know what, let's work on our form and efficiency and work on a 5K, and on the weekend we'll run 8 miles instead of 20, I think people would get behind it. But it's just taking one person to do that. And
I think it's influencers and social media.
Oh, for sure.
I think there's so much. I mean, so that's another change that I've seen is there's so many people don't know where to get their information from. And every time I open up social media, it's somebody who just ran this marathon and they're filming themselves and they're getting their medal. And it's like, I feel like social media and influencers also kind of plays a big role in making the marathon seem like the ultimate goal for any runner.
I mean, Lisa, you might not even know this, but you were actually, I opened up my social media the other day, my Instagram, and you know how sometimes you get stories of people in your algorithm that you might not follow?
Yeah.
There was a runner that did a story about you, Lisa, and talking about your paces, and clearly they got the content from our podcast, but they didn't say your name, and I'm sure this runner knew who you were. It was so weird that someone was like using your information to tell a story and use it as their own content.
That's a little creepy, but okay.
So I was just like, wow. So I just thought that I was thinking, so anyway, it got me thinking like how much of these content creators are using content that's your content. Like, I can't explain it, but it was so meta. Weird, yeah. I was like, wait, I think this person's talking about Lisa. Why don't they say Lisa's name and say kudos to Lisa? Why are they using it? I don't know. It just, I don't know what to say other than I'm going on a tangent.
Yeah, well, but it just comes back to the proliferation of social media and influencers and what can you believe? What is fact? What is performative? And it also is reflected in all the stories we see of runners who, cut marathon courses to then say, I qualified for Boston. Or we see these stories all the time of runners who cheat on courses for purposes of putting it on social media to say, oh, look at me. I did this because they're an influencer and they need to. Or even just the amount of influencers in races now. I didn't see as many, I think, maybe where I was on the course, but we saw a lot over Boston when we were running along the Esplanade. So many filming, like so many people not paying attention to what else was going on. They were filming. Yes. So I do think that I think that draws a lot of people to thinking that that's sort of the end all be all is doing the marathon. I think it's drawn a lot of people into running. I think going back to GLP-1s, I think that's drawn a lot of people into a focus on weight and performance. So I think social media and these influencers have had a huge role in changing the perception of our sport and the participation in our sport. And some of it's good and some of it's
I was going to say some of it's very positive. Like we want more people in this sport and we want more interest and we want younger people not on their phones all day. We want them out there running. And if this is going to get them out there, especially I noticed there's more people running in their early 20s running marathons. And I think that's great because those are folks who probably moved to a new city after college and adjusting to a new life and having the camaraderie of a running group. And that structure is not only important, but can really avoid isolation and all of the things that go with that. So I think it's fantastic. So I think there are so many positive aspects to the influencing genre, as long as the information is correct and it's being used in a productive and healthy way. And we have no control over any of that.
Yeah.
I think another big trend that we've seen lately that is a positive one from influencers and non-influencers is just promoting eating more during, before, and after runs. People are out there now explaining how much fuel they take, and it's not a flex when you don't eat anymore, as it used to be with respect to, I didn't take a gel during this run, I was fine. Now it's, I took 8 gels.
115 grams of carbs per hour. Right. Yeah, exactly.
So I'm all for that because And I think that in part is the registered dietitians out there a lot of them are really, really good at their marketing, and they're getting the information out there. And that's not only causing people to pause and say, wait, I should be eating more, but it's also, I think, causing people to actually value information from a registered dietitian separate from a running coach or someone who calls themselves a nutritionist. Don't get us started on that. So yeah, I think that's a big positive change is just there's more information. So it's like on the one hand, we just talked about GLP-1s, but then on the other, we're saying people are eating more. So I think that both can be true at the same time.
Yeah. And everything's personal, everybody's journey is their own. But yeah, I think the one, and I don't know the ins and outs of GLP-1s by any means. I know a few people who are on them, and I've checked in with them, and they are very happy about their choice, and they feel good. They also seem very new, and I wonder what the long-term impact is going to be. So we'll see. I think for some people, they've been super, super helpful. And I'm not talking about necessarily runners. And I also know, like, for instance, somebody who is diabetic and is on them for that reason. And I actually don't think it's that great for them because they don't need, they're not looking to lose any weight and they don't have weight to lose. And so it's having sort of a negative impact in that way. But anyway, I just think that I think I'm always a little bit hesitant about taking anything, but this leads into one question that I do want to make sure we talk about. And I also have to say, we're running a little long here, and I'm wondering if we want to do a part 2 and talk about our own running pursuits in a part 2 episode.
Yeah, sure. We can do that. Yeah.
Okay. So I'm going to ask this one question, since we are talking about taking pharmaceuticals or what have you, is HRT. Do you both want to share a little bit about your yes or no journey? And I'm very happy to kick it off because I had been a no on HRT up until about 6 weeks ago. It's hormone replacement therapy for anybody who is not familiar with that shorthand. And it is something that a lot of women who, when they enter perimenopause or, are postmenopausal, and I think most women are getting on to HRT before they're postmenopausal. And I know that there's some indications that you really, if you want the positive impact of it, you need to start it before you're 60. But I think that all the research is so new on all of this that we actually don't have firm answers about these things quite yet. But anyway, all to say that I had not done HRT. I was very hesitant because I did not have super duper strong, like really obvious perimenopause symptoms. Like I've never had a hot flash. I had lots of other symptoms that in retrospect, I realized that they were because of hormone chaos that I was going through. I am on the other side. So I am officially postmenopausal. But I'm only 56, so I still have 4 years to go before that 60-year mark. And one big issue for me has been sleep. And I have not had good sleep for a really long time. And I kept hoping that it would get better over time, and it just hasn't. And now with all the research that has debunked a lot of the old research about HRT, which used to link it to cancers and, other nasty side effects, which there are still concerns about things that could happen to you, blood clots and those sorts of things. So there are still risks. But a lot of the research has shown that they're a lot safer than early indications suggested or the early information was telling us. So, and then I talked to some friends and they were talking about how they had great experiences. So I finally was just like, all right, I'm going to give it a go. And I have to say I'm 6 weeks in and I just feel so much better.
That's so great. What amount are you on?
All the way around. Is it 125 of estradiol? Mm-hmm. Is that correct?
Point zero
or point
0.025. 0.02. A patch, I assume? I'm
on a patch. Yes. Okay. So I'm on a patch for estradiol. I'm at the low, whatever the very lowest is where they just started me.
Yeah.
Yes, that would be it. Okay. So I'm on a weekly patch and then I'm on an oral progesterone.
So you're saying your sleep still isn't great?
No, it's gotten a lot better.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's gotten a lot better. I just sleep I fall asleep faster.
Great.
And I sleep much more deeply. I still wake up a couple times a night, but I fall asleep so fast, and
I'm
I
so happy for
definitely
you.
sleep deeper. Yeah,
That's
and I have
amazing.
also, I've stopped trying to get up early in the morning. I used to be someone who, if my eyes opened at 5:45, I was like, I'm going to get a jump on the day. And now I don't do that anymore, and I sleep in till 7, sometimes almost 8 o'clock, which for me is pretty late. But I've stopped trying to get myself up early when I'm still feeling tired, because I just realized that sleep is way more valuable than whatever I'm going to do in that hour. And that if I need to work longer, I just work an extra hour at the end of the day. So that's been a big game changer. But the other thing I've noticed is that I have more consistent energy through the day. And of course, this could be because I'm sleeping better.
Mm-hmm.
But it was almost immediate. Like within 2 weeks, I was just like, I'm in 100%. So my sleep was better. My mood was generally better. I feel a lot less negative and angry. And not to say that there aren't a lot of things that are pissing me off these days, but I just don't have that same just jaw clenching anger about rage.
Right.
Yeah. Like I feel like I'm just coping. I'm more grounded with a lot of things. Just overall, and my energy is much more consistent throughout the day. So
that's awesome. So never go off of them.
Now, you two, what's your experiences? Yes, no.
No, go ahead.
Mine's quick because I'm not I maybe in perimenopause. Last time I had my hormones checked, I was fine. My doctor was like, everything's normal. So I have not had any even considerations, but I will say that we coach 3 runners that in the last 6 weeks have gone on HRT and have reported exactly the same thing as you. We're like, oh my gosh, I now can sleep. A lot of them have high hamstring tendinosis, which is common in menopause because our muscles and tendons start to degenerate a little bit. And several of them have said my hamstrings aren't as sore anymore. Like I don't have that soreness. I don't have, and it's been like marked, like you said, like day and night within a couple of weeks, they have all 3 reported. So anecdotally from runners that we coach, very similar, where I would say, and now we have runners that are telling us, I'm not sleeping well. I'm really sore all the time. I'm like, talk to your doctor about HRT. Yeah. We are not doctors. We cannot tell you what to do, but at least bring it up with your doctor and have that conversation, because we have seen firsthand just a sample size of 3 in the last few weeks that it has really been a game changer. So I'm going to turn it over to Julie because, like I said, I don't have any personal experience with it yet, but I know Julie has a different story.
And you're a little younger too. Yes. And I will chime in here to say that when I was going through perimenopause, so go back about 3 or 4 years, I was achy all the time. And I thought this was just part of getting old. Like I was just like, I'm just going to be achy. And it was awful. I was achy when I ran. I was achy when I wasn't running. I just was achy a lot. That's all gone away. That went away even before I got on HRT. But given what you just said, I would imagine that I would have had a lot fewer problems with it had I been on HRT earlier. So, Julie, sorry.
That's great. So in 2020, I lost my period, and I thought it was stress from COVID because I was 48. So it wasn't like on my radar. But fortunately, my mom is alive and well, and I was able to consult with her and ask her when she stopped her period, and she said around my late 40s. So I was like, oh, wow. Then I'm probably in menopause and had no idea. So I noticed that I was achy, and about probably about 6-7 months later, when doctors' offices were opening back up again for frivolous appointments.
Frivolous.
Yeah, exactly. I remember meeting with my gynecologist, and she didn't believe me and said, well, your numbers are fine. And I had remembered reading that your numbers kind of don't matter because it's really about your symptoms, because your numbers fluctuate day to day, hour to hour. So I promptly switched gynecologists, and I found someone through the North American Menopause Association, I think it's called, who's certified in menopause. Yep. And I love my doctor, and I went in and I said, I'm not sleeping well. I'm an athlete. I'm a little more sore, and I'm wondering if all these things are connected. And she promptly put me on a patch and progesterone. And it wasn't immediate for me. I definitely felt better. But what I did was I changed my dosage for both over the years. And that is something I encourage folks to do, is if you find that suddenly you are waking up again, examine your dosage. Maybe you need to adjust your progesterone. For me, after I tore my ACL and I connected it very confidently to a weakened tendon, I dug a little deeper and I made an adjustment to my patch. And now I increased that dosage a little bit. So I've been on a patch and progesterone since 2020 of varying dosages. And I'm happy to report that I sleep pretty well. And I also take magnesium at night to, I know a lot of people do.
Yeah.
I think for the right candidates, it's a great thing. There are a lot of people that aren't great candidates for a multitude of reasons. And there are other things that can be done. I think the biggest lesson is don't accept, especially as an athlete, that it is what it is, because it's not. We all can have certain things in our lives that are uncomfortable, but if there's a solution, we deserve to find that solution. And if your doctor is not giving you the solution, find a new doctor.
Well, and I will say too, one of the reasons why I decided to try it is because you can try it. If it doesn't work for you, you can get off of it. And that was, I don't know why I had it in my head that like once I got going, like somehow I'd be locked in. And it's just like, no, if you're like, my first check-in is at month 3. And if it were not working for me, I would, wean off of it and just not do it anymore. So it's not a permanent situation, or it can be. So, yeah.
Do either of you have any side effects?
No.
Yeah. Not that I know. Positive. Not that I've noticed.
Right. No, but I'm talking like negative side effects.
Not that I know of. Maybe I do and I don't realize it. So I guess nothing that I would notice.
Right. I'm the same. Nothing out of the ordinary.
No. I think I don't want to go off of it to see the difference. You know what I mean? Like
if it's working, just stick with it.
Yeah.
I'm just going to stick with it. Yeah.
Well, and one thing that you alluded to, Julie, just to chime in here for a second, is just how your first doctor was not helpful. And it's important for people to know or recognize that OBGYNs are not necessarily educated about menopause. In fact, their knowledge about menopause could be close to nothing. So that if you aren't getting somebody who has some idea of what's going on, then ask somebody else, because just because they're an OBGYN doesn't mean they know anything about women's hormones as they age.
Absolutely. And also we are now, it's very predatory right now. Menopause is trending and there is a lot of misinformation and products out there. So it's hard if you live in an area that's more rural. A lot of people go to telehealth as a solution, and there are a lot of providers that are excellent, but there are some that are scammy. And so doing research to make sure that the provider or the company that represents itself as a provider is legit and providing the right solutions. And it
not just selling a product.
Research. Yeah. So to be continued. This is a fun conversation. Thank you so much. This was your idea, Cherie, and it was really fun. So thank you for.
Okay.
We always say every time we hang out, we could talk forever, and we could.
And we kind of did.
People might not want to listen forever, so let's do a part 2.
Thanks for sticking with us, everyone.
Again.
Yeah. So I guess we'll just sign off by saying, look to the show notes for links, all the pertinent links that we've talked about here in this conversation, and also to our podcasts and Instagrams and all of those things. And we'll be back for a part 2. My knowledge of what we're going to talk about in our part 2 is our own running journeys.
All right. Let's do it.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So stay tuned for part 2. I'm not sure when we're going to do this, but it will be relatively soon, I think.
Yeah.
I like that.
We'll do it soon.
Yeah.
We'll make an appointment. All right. Have a great week, Cherie. Thank you so much.
Yeah, you too. Thank you so much.
Bye.
Bye-bye.